we've entered into a really strange time. I've got notes here, which I'm probably going to ignore completely now. And it's actually quite a hard thing to talk about. We've entered into a time where, look, we are in a shop full of answers. Quite literally, that's what this shop is. It's a shop of answers to the question of life and who we are and what we're here for. And yet, somehow, we've slipped into the Kali Yuga, into the time where the teachings are lost. And I find this a really interesting question of how this has happened, which I'm going to address in the next book, actually, because that has really been kind of playing on my mind at the minute. But I want to kind of just run through sort of what the underlying theme of Signposts is with you. But I want it to be more of a kind of being in presence together than a talk. Because the reason that I point out that we've kind of slipped in this way is that you may have come to this, or you may pick up a book like this and think that it's instructional, that it's information. And that is one of the signs of the Kali Yuga. That's one of the signs of the dark time, that the teachings are actually lost by being rendered into information rather than practice, rather than something that actually moves us towards the goal. The goal being the knowing of your own true self, self-realization, as it used to be called. So this is the problem that we find ourselves in. So if I was here talking about the future, or astrology, or something else, the numbers would be very, very different. If it was something about adding to yourself in some way, it would be very, very different. And I've been finding this quite a lot. I mean, the book ticks along very nicely, thank God. But I find that when you try to come to this, people always think that you're trying to talk from an opinion, that you're coming from a position, that it's something that you're asking people to believe in. So what I try to do now is, instead of, well, I never try to add to you, and I'm not asking you to believe in anything with this book, or by this talk, whatever this is. It's not really a talk. By our being together, what I attempt to do, I think, is to hold space for you so that you actually have an experience of your own self in some way. And I think that's the only thing that works in a way, because the mind will always divide things up. That's all it's ever going to do now, and we are absolutely stuck in this for the next, I think, is it for the next 365,000 years or something, that the Kali Yuga is supposed to go on. Some people say it begins ending in 2025. Others say it goes on for hundreds of thousands of years more. I can't quite figure out which is which. But all you have to do is just look and just see how everything is just rendered into dualities continuously, and division. Even spiritual teachings are about tribalism and pulling people into groups and beliefs and things like trying to add things to yourself, like the Buddhist precepts, trying to be something rather than discovering who we are. And even when we try to discover who we are, we try to do that through the mind all the time. And, you know, scripturally, the advice that we're given for the dark time is to work through the heart. That's the only thing. So if you want to raise your consciousness, as you might say, or come into fuller awareness of yourself, it's not mind-based. It has to be heart-based. And some people would be very surprised by that, because we equate mind and consciousness, mind and awareness. But actually the mind has got nothing to do with awareness. That's how you know you're thinking, for example. The mind has got nothing to do with awareness. In fact, it's a tertiary element of having form. Mind is only a form. So I really like a format called Satsang. And what Satsang basically means is being together, a community of people together in the spirit of truth. And in a setting like this, you turn it into a question and answer session. So I would much rather answer your questions. I'm more of a satsangi than a talker, as it were. If I talk, it sounds like I'm giving you information. But what I'd like to do is just have 5 or 6 minutes of actually having a little meditate with you, taking you in through your heart. Then I want to talk about a couple of questions that I keep seeing, which kind of relate to the book, so then we can kind of sell books, or kind of wave it around a bit in that way. And then kind of give you a key that helps unlock things. And because it's not a key that we use very much, and in fact is the underlying theme. There are just 2 underlying themes of this book, and I'm going to just tell them you now and save you $12.99. So, you know, although did you get yours free from Watkins? Yes, there you go. So, so for those on comps, you know, and there's 10% off in the store tonight as well. So let's have a little sit together. That's my wife disappearing. Right. Just join us for the meditation rather than the photos. All right, my love. Because I need the numbers. So what I want to invite you to do is notice that I've said the word meditate and how you may have already adopted an attitude of what you think meditation is. Have you noticed that? You notice that your mind moved towards doing something. So that's not meditating. If you try to add something to yourself in that way, where have you learnt that idea from? Where's it come from? You're not meditating when you do that. You're taking on a piece of conditioning or something that you've read, thinking it's an answer, and you're trying to fit into it. You're not meditating, and you're not on the path of self-realization. And that's a really radical thing to say, because we are surrounded by books telling us to do this, right? And I'm not saying this one's right and those are wrong. Those are right, but we approach them the wrong way most of the time. Nobody's actually asking the right questions a lot of the time. This is why this is a path for the few in this time. So I would invite you to drop your idea of meditation. And you might find that the mind struggles with that, because it's like, well, what the hell am I going to do now? What am I supposed to do? I read that meditation is meant to feel like this. I'm meant to quiet my mind. So what I invite you to do is just to be aware of your body sitting here. Let your mind do what it's doing. Don't try and blank out or something. But just be aware of your body and the space around you. Can you feel that? Can you feel your aliveness? Just the you that's here. Now, of course, the mind is doing its thing and the emotions are doing its thing. So I want to invite you just to feel into your natural rhythm of your breath. And we're not going to follow the breath in the mindfulness of breathing sense. But I just want you to connect with your breath. And this practice is called the pranayama practice that we're about to do. Notice that you can also feel your breath at the level of your heart. And so I would just invite you, just over the next minute, without pushing or pulling your breath, to be aware of your breath moving through your chest at the level of your heart. And just allow that to settle. And we might say that this is the first heart. You're becoming aware of your physical heart and the breath through the heart. And amazingly, you probably hit a patch of vulnerability very quickly, a sense of feeling a bit vulnerable. So instead of trying to avoid that vulnerability, I want to invite you just to kind of open your hand and see if you can allow it, just a little bit. Come on, come on. Just open your heart, open your hand inside yourself and say, come on, I love you, I'm here. And let that vulnerability just settle like a little bird into your hand. And so you become aware of the second heart. The second heart is your emotional heart. that bit of vulnerability that you've just felt, the fear that comes up at the idea of meeting yourself, or of letting go, or of not knowing how to love, which was my problem for a long time. So this is the second heart. So allow your breath to move through that space of your second heart, not as a visualization, actual, whilst allowing the awareness of your body, the chair beneath you, the space of the room, and a feeling of life in you. And you will notice that the mind likes this. It's like stroking the cat. The mind likes this, and it kind of begins to kind of settle back. So instead of trying to control the mind, we begin to return to consciousness. We begin to return to awareness in a true way. Now what's really interesting is as this settles, notice that you're not creating it. That there's just a clarity that begins to appear, a glimmer, an illumination. And in that illumination, it's almost as if you're aware that that's the part of you that's aware of your mind and your heart and your feelings. So there's like a deeper layer through the heart, a third heart, a heart of stillness, a heart of awareness. And this is what's called in Sanskrit the Hridayam, or the heart within the heart. And it's from here that we can return each day. This is Bhakti, or the heart practice, or the Atmanista practice, the learning your own soul practice, or the self-realization practice. As taught by Anandamaya Maya, Ramana Maharshi. He's very famous for doing the I am not this and I am not that practice. But this is also one of those practices, the Atmanistas. And whilst you were just there, I'd like to drop a poem by Kabir into your mix. Are you looking for me? I'm sitting right next to you. My shoulder is against yours. You will not find me in meditation halls, nor in the mandir, the masjid, the Beit Knesset, or in the cathedral. Not in the words of a mass, nor in mantras or sutras. Not in complicated yoga postures, nor eating nothing other than rice and vegetables. When you sincerely look for me, you will see me instantly. You will find me with you in the smallest house of time. Tell me, what is God? God is the breath inside the breath. Or we might say the heart inside the heart. This is my kind of talk now. Well, we don't. Just allowing yourself not to move towards intensity, or if that idea of meditation kicks in, not resisting it or pushing it away, just returning back to the heart at whatever level you can, the breath through the heart. This was also a favourite practice of Ramdas. If you remember him, he used to like this practice very much. And so that's my simple invitation to you. Because within that space, this is love that we're feeling. This is awareness and love through the heart. And it's got nothing to do with what we think at all. And yet, when we begin to follow our authentic heart, the mind begins to upgrade. Our ways of the ways that we express ourselves through our life begin to want to change. And we can either allow that or not. And one of the great problems that we have is that we don't allow that change. We keep our practice closed and to ourselves, if we even have a practice. I mean, we're very lucky, actually, because you know that there's a question to be asked. You know that there's a path that might be followed. Most people don't. Most people just live kind of in reaction upon reaction upon reaction, thinking, what does Jung say? Thinking that it's fate, you know? Thinking that it's fate that their lives are like this. But when we return to the soul, which is what we've just done, we've actually just, that sense of yourself that you felt, even if it was just a micron of that, that's the road home. Not that we're trying to make an attitude of soul, an idea of living through our soul, but actual. So that's kind of what I wanted to present in this book. I wanted to present each step that we will go through along the way, but then also look at the problems that you're going to meet at each step. One great problem that we meet is the idea that you have a bit of an awakening experience at some point and you're done. Whereas actually, it's a constant unfolding. Whatever place you're at, we don't bother measuring where we are against others, but you start to be able to kind of see the sort of net that is kind of around us. But it's always an unfolding. It's always an unfolding. So, in a way, that's an absolute magic, you know. But let me turn to a couple of questions, and then I'll just, if there's anything you would like to chat with me about, you know, which is what I prefer, quite honestly. So, we've started with the answer. I'm rubbish at kind of building up to something and then surprising you at the end, which is, I guess, is what I'm supposed to do. But I always just give you the goodies and, you know, I want to run away sort of thing. And I heard somebody say the other day, how can I be authentic? This wasn't directed at me, but it's a question that I get a lot, which is, how can I be authentic? And what I noticed was in the question is that it was absolutely a performative question. It wasn't meant in any way. It was a way of appearing to do something. And you see people do this with therapy, you know, a lot of the time. We kind of go to therapy because we really want to know that there's something wrong with us and what our story is, and then we can tell everybody what our story is, you know. But not actually make any changes. I've seen quite a lot of this. But it was an absolutely performative question, so there was literally no point in pursuing this, you know, with them. And authenticity is very, very simple to find within oneself. Very, very simple to find. You just admit your inauthenticity. That's all that you've got to do, you see. So, admitting the problem is actually the solution every single time. The question itself is the doorway, you see. So how can I be more authentic? Means that you have to realize your inauthenticity or where you are kind of holding back from life. But we want to be seen to be things. And it's a really interesting path because you have to kind of give up your somebodyness in order to be able to tread it. And there's, I said there's a magic key that leads directly into the heart of authenticity. And it's 3 words. It's just 3 words. I don't know. That's it. It's as simple as that. No. And there's no shame in that, you see. When we allow I don't know, then we can find out. And this is kind of what happened to me on my journey. I'd reached a particular place in 2012 where I had built my somebodyness to such a degree that it could no longer sustain, and it fell. It actually fell down, and it just felt, it was the worst thing, worst pain ever. And thankfully, there were no doctors around or anything, because I would have been locked away, I think, at this kind of sort of psychic collapse. It was an absolute falling down. And I have to tell you that these three words are kind of, I don't know, literally come from my heart of darkness, my dark night of the soul, as you would call it. Because when everything fell down, I consider it to be the greatest blessing that's ever happened to me, quite honestly. Because in that moment, instead of the despair, and I did actually consider suicide at this point, there was nowhere else to go. The form could take no more. There was no way else to live. There was nowhere to breathe. And I don't want you to arrive at that point. That's why I write books. Not because I want fame or anything like that. I just want, if I can save anybody, any part of this journey, and kind of say, here's a space, try that, and you find something in it for yourself. And at that moment of falling down, something from that place that we've just sat in together, right, which is common to all of us, it's the heart of life. That's the oneness that we talk about, the Hridayam. Said, I don't know, but I can find out. And that's all that I had. That's all that I had. And I knew to not try to add to myself anymore at that point, to try and put the old things back on, because that's what we do. If we have a fall like that, and I'm not saying that therapy and psychotherapy and so on don't have their place, but if I'd have gone down that route, we would have tried to rebuild me or ourselves into a person who can then kind of function within that unfunctionality again, But something deeper. I've been very lucky my whole life that some part of my spirit has kind of kept me going in this way. And this was kind of basically it. And so if we can drop the shame aspect of it and allow I don't know to exist within us, then we're always going to be on the track of authenticity in ourselves. You see? It's very simple. It's like we take our mask off every day. We just remove the false mask that we think that the world is asking of us. We think we've been built into somebody's. The entire structure of our society is to create somebodyness, if you see what I mean. So, you're born, you're given a name, but of course you were alive before you had a name. So I wonder what our real names are, And then, as lovely or as unlovely as they might be, our parents begin to say to us, these values make you a Smith or a Siddique or a, Sharma or a whatever, This is what you have to do to be a member of this family. And then outside of that, this is what you have to be in order to be a functional member of this society. Notice how this is reinforced every single day. And so, I don't know is not allowed. You notice that? What we're supposed to do now, if somebody asks us a question, is we're supposed to have an answer like that, intellectual and quick and snappy and twitterable or Instagrammable or something like that. And we're meant to know loads of stuff. But what if we just drop it all and don't know? And so that's my invitation in a way, is to move to heart and not knowing. Not dumbness, but actually allowing your soul to start giving you some answers. Okay? So, authenticity lies in that place. And I would say that this is perhaps the most radical thing of all. And it's absolutely radical because we become teachable. So, I'm not going to ask you to answer this question, but I want to invite you to reflect on it. And I'm not saying that my book is an answer either. But I want to ask you, are you teachable? And for you to kind of take that with you. Are you teachable? Or are you allowing yourself to be teachable? By teachable, I don't mean taking on somebody else's stuff, or creating an egoic spirituality for yourself, which is so much of what's going on now. False spiritualities, religions of one, and or collections of things, and you start your YouTube channel and all that, after a couple of microdoses or something like that. It's bonkers. But inviting teachability into yourself by allowing your own heart and by allowing I don't know. That's it. That's all I have, really. It's the desire to invite you to remove your somebodyness. And I'm being selfish, actually, with that, because there's something I want. I want to see you. I want to see you, and I want to be seen. Not me, little me, but I and I, as they say. I and I. Or I am that, the that of us. And so we give up, in a way, being respectable. We give up spirituality. We give up our beliefs. And what we find on the other side of that, not rejection of those things, but transcending of them by the meeting of our hearts, we find what we've always been looking for. And all I can do is speak from my own experience in this, because what it feels like on the other side is, oh yes, it's me. That was my experience. Oh yes, me. And you realise that you've never lost yourself the whole time, but that we've done everything we can to cover ourselves over, and that is actually the mechanism of the conditioned world that is operating at this time. And so there's a lot more to go after this, This is only a little part. This is just the beginning of things. But I just want to kind of lay it into your hands as a gift, really. Not from me, but because I'm somehow asked to sit here in this space this evening and ask the question of, are we teachable? That's all. But there's no me in it. I don't matter, in a way, in this. Because, as they say in Zen, one becomes a person of no mark. It's not about status, or anything like that. But we're not going to survive on one level as human beings unless we choose another route. We can actually see that the world, that things are dying. The system that we have been working on for so long is no longer functionable, and we are maladapted to continue as life now from here on out in this period, unless something new is born. But the new that is born is what already is. You see, this is how we will make it. If we don't do that, then we will probably evolve into something weird and twisted that carries on for a few millennia, perhaps, in far less numbers or something like that, but will be some weird, unfunctioning, twisty thing. Or we can actually be what we were always meant to be, which is that sense of yourself that you can feel already. Because I'm not trying to add anything to you, and there is nothing to add to you. It's not that the conditioned part of ourselves is perfect already, and it's not that we have to even get rid of that. It's that your own life, right this moment, and all the conditionality of your life is asking you the question over and over again, of will you come back to your own heart? Or will you return to your own self? Everything that happens is the doorway. Everything. There's no accidents at all. It's not a mistake. But what we never do is we never answer the call. We just keep pushing or resisting more and more into it. Amazing, quite honestly. And if that question touched you at all, then that's astonishing to me. I just think it's absolutely beautiful. We'll leave it at that. So thank you so much. Thank you. So I know we are few, and I kind of expected that because this is not, the singing, dancing, tell your future show. Or I could tell you about your past life. That always gets loads of people in as well, actually. But here and now and alive and loving, I ain't gonna get any. That's a different thing. But as I said, I'm more of a satsangi than a talker. I think I actually managed to touch the things that were on there. There were two other questions. What did I write down with the other two questions? How do I access my heart? Well, we did that in the meditation. And my most asked question of all time, seriously, because I teach on these different apps, every single day I get asked this question. How can I let go? I'm trying to let go. How can I let go? I'm working on being present. How can I be more present? And, well, you already know the answer to that. So we did it all with the meditation rather than the thing. That's why I said I'd rather it be experiential than some kind of, here's a bunch of information that you need to process, as it were. So if you had anything you wanted to share or ask, I'd be more than happy to kind of try.
Thank you so much. I really, really love, hearing your story, the heart of this. It's all really beautiful. I think for me, what I know for me, there's an issue with I don't know. And I sort of like come from the sort of, I'm so indoctrinated in my thinking that like, well, how do you do I don't know, but then decide what to do? Because you're making a decision about what to do. You must believe you know something, right?
Yeah.
So then, if you're saying I don't know, how do you think, well, this evening, what should I do? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think it's on that level in a way.
Right.
I think it's that deeper question, So my I don't know was around love.
Right.
And I realised up to that moment that I'd never loved anybody, which is a really frightening revelation, actually. What I'd done was I'd sought a kind of oblivion in other people in the hope that it would fulfill me, in a way. Or I sought a kind of a merging, and as they say in, is it Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, our album covers have lied to us, and our Hollywood movies have lied to us about what things are. So it's not, what should I do this evening? I don't know. But it can be that, because if you kind of feel like you're kind of on the treadmill and treading the same old life, and it's all just kind of dull and not actually offering you any true nourishment, then I don't know does have a place, doesn't it?
I think I'm more like, like there's so many wonderful options type,
Yeah.
rather than I'm stuck in a rut type.
Yeah.
Which should I choose of all these amazing, choices, things you can do,
Yeah. Well, I would say always, because I'm interested. I don't go out at all anymore. I'm interested in almost nothing, because nothing is about consciousness. For me, anyway. I don't watch TV. I haven't read a newspaper in a decade. Don't listen to the news. Occasionally I go to the cinema, and I often leave within 10 minutes of watching something. That's because I'm a writer. I kind of know the classic realist model inside out. And the minute the film starts, I go, oh, I know what the end is now, and then I leave. Novels are the same, actually. I go, oh my God, and I know what the end is. But, if you were applying it to this question of awareness, of self-realization, because that's what I'm talking about, then it's whatever has love and consciousness in it. Whatever kind of, or reflects you back to your true self. So you can do all sorts of wonderful things, but are they actually of the path for you? And so we can do all sorts of marvelous things and be all sorts of amazed, at stuff. But is it actually anything at all? Is there anything in it? And so that's a doorway. You see, it's not a closing of a door. It's an opening of a door. It's actually opening to other possibilities entirely. You know. So looking for the path of the heart in what we do, even if it's just choosing what we do to go out, will, you know, will help. I think. You know. I mean, one question might invite you to reflect on is, why are you here tonight? You know, what brought you here? You know, unless you have to be here, of course, you know, because you work for Watkins Books or something. But you know, or if you meditate, what brings you to your meditation? You know, where's the what's driving you? And ask that question honestly of yourself. And what you'll find is, with most things, even with things like spiritual practice, most people are either trying to run towards something or run away from something. So most things are fear-based, actually. And there's very little path of love in our choosing a lot of the time. So I would invite you to have a look at that. But again, it's not a smashing ourselves down in any way. It's more of the desire to want something real. That's all I ever wanted. I wanted something real, and I wasn't finding it anywhere at all. And it wasn't because things were at fault. It's because I was living through conditioning. You know, and so there's nothing wrong in even watching football or, you know, going out with your friends or anything like that. It's not don't. It's just, how are we there? Are we actually there when we're there, or are we running toward or away? You see, are we there in love or are we there in fear? Does that help?
Yeah, that was lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
No, are you there and really there, or are you there in 7 other places at exactly the same time?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. You know, or what power structures are playing out within that. I don't know if you ever observe people when you're out, groups of friends and things, or listen. A lot of my stuff comes through what I'm hearing, or rather the spaces in what I'm hearing. And there's two things that give away authenticity, or the lack of it, all the time. And this will frighten you, so I shouldn't tell you, really. But
Oh, come on.
no, I'm now I forgot what I said. Somebody's laugh. Listen to people laughing in the pub or in a restaurant. Listen for the laugh, and you'll often hear the laugh. You know, there's nothing there at all. You know, it's actually just wanting to be part of this kind of tribal sort of thing. You know, or it's the tone of somebody's voice. I can always tell either in the laugh or the tone of somebody's voice where they're at. Not me judging them, but where they are at in relation to their own heart. Quite honestly, whether they're in love or fear, and it's not a judgment. It's just something I can't help but notice anymore. And it's always the voice. It's always in the voice. The body tells a lot as well, but the voice gives everything away. And the laugh is the absolute killer. You know, the way somebody laughs is murder. Try it. Just try it. Go out. Go and sit in a pub after or something and just listen. You know, and try not to be a judgmental mofo, quite honestly. Because now that you have this secret power, you know.
Would I be correct in assuming it's higher pitched when it's an authenticity?
No,
voice?
not necessarily. No. You just hear the dullness of it. You hear the lack of life in it. It just literally goes dunk like that. And if you look, you'll see the dynamics at play. You know. So most things are power structures. You know, there'll be somebody who has to be kind of worshipped within that group. There'll be somebody that wants the attention this way, somebody that needs the attention that way. Basically, what we often do in relating with each other is you affirm my ego identity and I'll affirm yours, you know, and we'll try not to argue too much. kind of thing, and not upset the balance. And we call that love a lot of the time, you know. And I can't speak for anybody else. Just for me, it's not enough. It's not enough. I need life, as it were. We've kind of given up on life, I think, in this time. I think that's another sign of the dark time. We've kind of given up on it, and we make do with these shallows instead, you know. Shallow pools. Sounds very bleak, doesn't it? But it's a message of joy, ladies and gentlemen. It's a message of joy. I got the good news. Yeah. But that your question about being in 7 or 8 different places at once, if you want to kind of work with that, that's not a thing to feel guilty about or have difficulty with. The simplest way back is to allow presence in the body. So either breathe through your heart within that space, and maybe I've just added a new thing to my website. I've got a couple of membership sites. One's free and one's like a kind of subscriber site. But I put it in both, but with slightly different instructions. And what it is I'm giving it away now. At noon and at 3 o'clock and at 9 in the evening, for just a minute, it's called the open moment, you come back to yourself in this way 3 times a day. And the one in the evening, I invite you, if you are at home and you're near your shrine, just to light your candle and just take a minute a little more deeply. But this is added on top of your kind of twice a day meditation sort of thing or whatever, you know. So with my students, I'm like, twice a day, and it's like this. But just a regular checking in through your day. And what's really interesting is to do it in the places where you really struggle. So if it's at work, if you find yourself you've got nice authenticity when you're with your partner, or you're at home, or you've got a nice sense of yourself, but you notice when you are with that person, like your mother at Christmas, you know, and it goes, you know, and you're down to being the screaming 5-year-old, or when you're in the workplace. Oh, Naz, you do that, do you? Right. So, you know,
in my head.
In your head, yeah. So the thing to do in those places is not try to beat yourself, but to allow yourself a moment of presence in each situation. Just begin working with it that way, not to achieve something, but to, you know, rebel against your own training in a way and allow life in those moments. And you see things completely differently when you do that. Yes, sir?
Yeah, what do you think of like Eckhart Tolle's idea where like your ego and thoughts are not real you, but so when you know about his idea? So
Yeah, very well.
When you meditate, you see your real being below the surface. Like people say, like your thoughts are not your real you. You know what I mean?
That's right.
What's your view on it?
I'm with him 100% on that, as it were. Yeah, I take a slightly different direction with some things. So I for one, I'm not a kind of just being present kind of person all the time, because we can easily take that on as a kind of attitude, and I'm not faulting anything he says at all. I love his books, and he's absolutely brilliant. And he sat in this chair, stood in this corner, so I'm like, whoa, you know, he's brilliant. And when you come to the level of the soul, you will see that stuff isn't actually who you are. But what's interesting is the minute that the meditation's over, how quickly we put it back on again, you know? So if we're caught in this cycle of drop and put it back, rinse and repeat, it's going to be a long time, isn't it? So I'm interested in how we then move through that. And so that's why I want to invite you to consider that it's an unfolding continuously, rather than a trying to achieve a certain place with it, you see. And to begin working with it in those places where you lose it most, as it were. So again, that takes an honesty with yourself of, I lose it when I'm around my mum, or I lose it when I'm around this person who I'm supposed to love. And it's not that we're wrong, it's that we have to feel that fear and then find the presence underneath that in a way, you know. Where I vary a little bit around this stuff, because my lineage is quite different in a way, is that I think it's important to both have presence, but to be active with presence and to begin creating the world from that place around you instead of it being a private closed space, which is what a lot of us do. So a lot of us will kind of have a presence practice, but then nothing changes in our outer world. Say we run a business or something like that, we keep on with the same paying conditions for our people. You know, we keep on commodifying in the same way. We keep on buying into the same system. You've got to let your soul into those spaces and rewrite you. If we allow the rewriting to occur, we will not die. Basically, we'll make that world. And it's not a world of light, it's a world of life. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you.
And thank you.
Thank you.